Hello and welcome to another episode of The Zoo. Today we're going to talk about big data, big data. And with me to explain really the impact it has on our lives and what BMC software is doing to get in on the action is Joe Goldberg and Robin Reddick. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, welcome. Great to be here again.
Yes, we're going to say this is like your third time, or?
I could never be enough.
And Robin, welcome. Where are you today?
Today I'm in Cary, North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Both of you been with BMC for a bit, and you know what we do. So this is a new initiative. But before we go into what BMC is doing around big data, I'd like to know, why is big data big data? Who cares? Joe, you can start.
Okay, sure. My problem is never starting, it's ending. So let me know when you've had enough. But so, today it's pretty much impossible to pick up a newspaper or turn on the TV without hearing something about big data. The term and the technology is impacting everything from the way people drive in cars, watch football and baseball, as well as really every critical aspect of our lives. Certainly health, financial services, you name it. What's going on is that our world has become fully instrumented. There are sensors absolutely everywhere collecting data about everything all the time. And the challenge is how to make use of that data. Obviously, there's tremendous opportunity, but it does require new approaches, new technologies, new ways of thinking about it. And that very generally is what the term big data refers to. It's having so much data that the traditional technologies that we've used in computing and in commercial computing especially for the last many decades just is not capable of leveraging and processing and extracting all the possible value out of that data. And so along with all of this data, there's a whole bunch of new technologies that have come along as well.
So Robin, how does this affect my life? Joe talked about baseball and other things. I don't feel big data in my life. Point it out to me.
Well, this may not be you specifically off, but one of the things that I think about big data is, how the healthcare companies are using big data. And, I view that as they're doing really great things. One of the ways that they do is they're able to collect a lot of data on their patients, marry it up with research that has been done, and do a lot of analysis on it to figure out best treatments for their patients. We also have a company that we work with that is using the collection of big data to basically identify when there is the potential for a patient to go into septic shock. So they can actually see the signs of what can occur, and so they can jump in and remediate that immediately. So big data is really interesting in a lot of ways. It could give you insights to things, but what healthcare is doing with it is really truly saving lives. And so there's some pretty magnificent things that are being delivered out of the big data area.
I've been at BMC for a while now, and I've seen initiatives around BMC around big data, but I never really understood what they were. What's our position, if you will, Joe, on big data?
So BMC has been traditionally an IT management company. We have helped. I think our marketing slogan is something like 82% of the Fortune 500, meaning the largest companies in the world. We've helped them, extract value out of their IT environments by managing them effectively. And so when it comes to big data, we're pretty much continuing to do the same. The big data
customer-driven, if you will, are interested in it.
I'm sorry?
This is a bit customer-driven, our interest in it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, this market has gone from sort of a research project just a few years ago to really being a mature market where pretty much every company is doing something with big data and has a big data initiative. And as I mentioned earlier, there are all these challenges with having to absorb new technology and being able to leverage that. And there are the dynamics in our environment are actually kind of complex. So it's not just big data, but there's a whole bunch of other technology sort of trends that are converging together with big data. And it requires companies to react much more quickly than they have before, to adopt new technologies and introduce new services much faster than they have ever before. And data is really kind of behind all of that, which it has always been. If you think about what we call our technology environments, they have always been about the data. Whether you used to call them, automated data processing or even IT, if you stop to think of it, it's I is information. So data has always been at the core of the value that computers can deliver to organizations and in the services that they provide to companies. And so being able to manage it and to manage it in new and exciting ways is, I think, both the challenge and opportunity of big data. And what BMC is now doing and what we are discussing is bringing much of the kinds of enterprise-grade technology management that we have offered in the traditional space and making it available to help our customers manage the big data environment so that they can deliver new capabilities and new services to their customers.
Interesting. Robin, what specifically are we doing then to help our customer with big data?
Well, one thing when Joe was talking made me think about is, everybody treats big data, yes, it's new, it's interesting, it's a new technology. There's this whole discussion out there about IT transformation, and everybody kind of talks about it like it's happening for the first time, right? And that big data is part of that IT transformation. And if you look at IT is in constant transformation. And BMC has helped companies continue to transform their IT organizations from day of inception. And, just like Joe said, data's been at the heart of it. We've continued to help companies make use of their data by helping them evolve their IT infrastructure and help them manage their IT infrastructure as it evolves. So as we move into the whole big data space, this is a really natural progression for BMC because this is what we do and what we've done for the 35 years that we've been in business, is we are constantly evolving into the next trend or transition for IT. So we have all the fundamental talents. We've been doing it for years. We know how to manage infrastructure. We know how to manage data. So here we go again.
So we're helping them manage what's already in place and turning the data into information, as Joe pointed out earlier. Do we have products today, or if I come knocking on the door at BMC and say, hey, I need some big data, so to speak, what would you serve up?
Yeah, some of the core things that BMC has helped companies with forever. So, one of the things that, let's start foundationally. What do they need to do? They need to build out a big data environment, which requires them buying, new computing power, things like that. So we have a capacity management tool, and guess what it does? It helps people plan out their IT environments. It helps them understand what resources they need for running the workloads that they need to run. We also have tools that are pointed even at application development. So all of the applications in the big data space, they're new. They're being developed from the ground up because they're very much tailored to what the organization needs for gleaning their insights. So there's a lot of new application development going on in these areas, and we have some tools that help application developers, get insight into their development, doing testing, so that they can actually work in an agile development mode, which is pretty common in these big data environments. Joe alluded to that earlier, that they want to get these things out quickly, and there's new modes going on there. So we actually have, our Pulse solution will very much help an application developer be able to see how their application is running and make sure it's ready for that quick release and the iterations that follow that, and make sure that it continues to perform well.
Interesting.
Well, those are a couple of things.
And so, Joe, what would be the most traditional use case among our customers? You know, for example, performance management is one that we mentioned. What can we help our customer with the most, or what are we best equipped to help them with?
Well, you know, I think that we're very well equipped to help them in a lot of different areas. Well, so when it comes to big data specifically from, you know, the set of products or solutions that I'm involved with, which is managing workflows and managing batch, what has always been the case with big data, and by the way, the technologies around big data, probably one of the fundamental ones is something called Hadoop, which has by many analysts been called the OS for big data. It's kind of like the fundamental layer. That's 10 years old. It actually celebrated its 10th anniversary just recently. So it's been around for a while. And just like in kind of traditional spaces, in the big data space, about 50 to 70% of all the work that's run is run in batch. So, you know, batch is like the Maytag repairman. It's not very sexy, doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's absolutely mandatory in that, you know, everybody needs it, and it helps run the most critical workloads. So we've gotten into that space almost 3 years ago now, and so we've been working in the big data space for that amount of time. But what's really exciting for us now, and as kind of as I alluded earlier, that there are a lot of converging trends and bringing together also what Robin mentioned, that there's this need for speed. The entire sort of structure of what is a data center, the relationship between IT and the rest of the business is all shifting around. And you know, what manifests itself as agile and getting things developed faster also includes the need for sort of owning the components of an application, including the batch stuff, not having to rely on IT, being able to leverage sort of dynamic environments like cloud. And so the most recent set of capabilities that we're adding to our workflow management solution is letting developers, DevOps teams, integration teams attain that measure of ownership and sort of, you know, being able to manage the full stack, what frequently is talked about as sort of full stack development or full stack ownership of an application, and being able to manage it from inception, where development is done, all the way through running it, without necessarily having to work with or deal, or at least deal differently with the IT and data center environment than they have in the past. So that's probably the most exciting thing for us. I mean, the solution that I work with is called Control-M, and that's what manages workflow, and it provides
a workload automation tool.
I'm sorry?
That's a workload automation tool, correct?
Correct. Yes, and one of the problems, by the way, in this new world is there's a lot of new technology and terminology changes, and so, you know, workload can mean a lot of different things. You may notice that I call it specifically workflow. We sometimes call it batch because depending on which word you use, it may not mean the same thing to your audience. But one of the things we have discovered is because of this need to get new applications, new functionality, and business services delivered as fast as possible, the way companies have started organizing their development staff and what used to be integration teams, and the way they do change management, and the way they even operationalize applications, all of those have been evolving. And so, again, another trend that you hear a lot about is something called DevOps. That's the convergence that I was referring to, that you really need to kind of develop and deliver your new applications in a different way. And so we've added capabilities that let developers and development teams and DevOps engineers own the entire process and bake in what eventually becomes very robust enterprise-scale capabilities for managing batch, but to be able to include that and leverage that through the entire application development and release cycle within their own set of tools. So that's been I think it's a whole new market really for us, and it's exceedingly it's very interesting and exciting, from a Control-M perspective.
What's next, Robin? You share a little bit about what your specific product, and you can continue down that angle, or you can give us a holistic view. But what's next in our march towards big data domination here at PMC?
So I will answer that, but before I do, I want to go back to what Joe said, for just a minute because he talked about something that was really important, which was, this world of the application developer being able to own and control a lot more of what they do. So, on top of what Joe said, I'll just go back and add that, Pulse it falls right in that bucket of what Joe was talking about because it's a
That's what we call TrueSight Pulse, right?
TrueSight Pulse that developers can, SaaS-based developers can use that. So just as Joe was describing that they can build their own applications, build out their own workflows, they can then turn around and use TrueSight Pulse to make sure that that application is performing as they would expect it to perform. And make sure that, as Joe said, it's ready to go through the release automation process. And then they can continue to monitor it in production with Pulse as well. Make sure that everything went exactly as they wanted. So, what we are seeing on our side is from a performance and performance management. I was going to say performance and analytics, but we're talking about analytics, so I don't want to confuse the topic. But from a performance perspective, we're going to continue to add, additional functionality into Pulse and make that a richer tool for developers to continue to use. We are continuing to build out extensions in our capacity. Some of the things that we are hearing that customers want, we can serve some of that up, but we want to make it easier for customers to interface with the product, and that is many folks have a single cluster that they use for multiple applications. And so we're finding that organizations feel it's really, they want to have the insight to understand what applications are using what infrastructure resources in their Hadoop cluster. Many of these organizations have chargeback. They want to make sure that they understand the growth of each application and how to keep that Hadoop cluster healthy. So we'll continue to extend that product and make it easier for all stakeholders to be able to participate in that. And then we also have, we're building some tools out that actually even fall into the bucket of big data applications. So what we have been talking about so far are tools that help customers manage their own big data environments. And what we are venturing into is offering applications that are already made that companies can use for big data analytics, and just, it's a platform that they can actually ingest data, the types of data that are important to them to do the analytics. So for organizations that may not have data scientists on board or don't have the funding to do a ground up or a way to get started quickly, we do a big data application that somebody can actually buy off the shelf and use.
I like it a lot. Any final words, Joe? Short final words.
Well, so let me take a little bit of the same kind of approach in terms of where we're going with our solution. What we are beginning to hear from customers, I mean, the Hadoop and the big data ecosystem is just growing all the time, and as I said, within the last just couple of years, it's gone from almost a sort of a startup research project kind of status to being mission critical, but it's constantly evolving. And so some of the other technologies that are beginning to kind of come into the big data space, like containerization and alternative sort of workload management systems like Mesos, they're all becoming and kind of intermingling or commingling with Hadoop and the big data ecosystems, and we are moving to provide the same sort of offering, the same sort of core capabilities that everybody needs to be able to manage this kind of stuff from an enterprise perspective, manage SLAs, to be able to ensure that you meet sort of audit requirements, have very sophisticated capabilities. So that's the set of sort of core capabilities, and then we're layering on top of this support for this evolving technology ecosystem that's just continuing to grow almost every day. And so it all adds up to tremendous complexity, and the more complex the environment, the greater the opportunity for solutions like ours. So we see this as a huge opportunity going forward.
Always leave the last word to the lady. Robin, you want to close it out?
Yeah, BMC is building out a really nice big data management and application product line. What you've heard Joe and I talk about are really, from building to managing to monitoring and helping application development get those applications out quickly. So, we're going to continue to keep going in that direction, and we have a lot to offer. So people should come take a look at what we're doing.
Sounds great. It's very interesting. Thank you both for coming to the zoo, and welcome for having your first time here. Robin, it was great to have you. Joe, I hope to see you again many more times.
Thank you.
For the rest of you out there, take care. Be safe. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks.